Oh man.
Hang on, I'm gonna go down to Starbucks. I know the music's gonna be going for a while.
Right, this is gonna take a while.
What? Are you playing the whole damn thing?
Play the whole thing.
Damn it.
Man. It's like 5 minutes. I can't do that.
Yeah,
really
it is.
It's like... Welcome to Earth2 Comic Cast, where superheroes exist and comic book talk is enormous. Your boy Moecrosby. This is our first of many events. This is Retro Reviews, and I want to welcome you guys to this live discussion that we're doing. So
there you go.
Again, I want to thank everyone that's watching or that's going to come on later or whatever. But I want to go ahead and introduce these two gentlemen I have with me to discuss Superman. And you've heard from one of them before, so I'm going to let the new person on Earth2, go ahead and introduce himself. All right, go ahead, Patrick.
Hey, my name is Patrick. I probably stand out in this crowd because I'm from Seattle, so I'm representing West Coast. Although I grew up in Baltimore, so grew up on the East Coast, and I love me some Superman. I'm really excited to talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally,
these movies defined me in many ways. Like this is my childhood right here. Thank goodness for that, like HBO, where they would give you free HBO for a day. And they played like Superman and Empire Strikes Back, and I'd be recording, like throwing tapes in as fast as I could. Childhood right here. Thank goodness for that, like HBO, where they would give you free HBO for a day. And they played like Superman and Empire Strikes Back, and I'd be recording, like throwing tapes in as fast as I could.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Childhood right here.
Sorry.
Okay.
Right. Next,
were you playing Patrick back as we were talking?
Yeah, it sounded like it. He really likes my voice.
I thought I was stuck in a Twilight Zone for a second there. Like, what am I here? Like, am I in a Matrix? Is this how it's
No.
Oh, okay.
So you've heard this guy right here is about to introduce himself. You've heard him before. He already has a channel, but he's going to tell you what he's about. So go ahead, Lucas.
Here's Lou. Draw4 the podcast. That's the channel. Check it out if you've never heard of it before. I am not a big Superman fan. Have never been a big Superman fan. But these movies, the early movies, were pretty good. It made me believe that they could actually make a superhero movie until like Superman 3 came out. Then I lost all hope in Superman again. But before
we don't talk about Superman 3. Superman 1,
we're not talking about that movie. That movie didn't happen.
So I'm guessing neither did what Quest for Peace. We're gonna lead those out too.
Nope.
I'm gonna suggest a Superman machete method later on. Like Star Wars.
Interesting.
This should be dope because I mean, Mo clearly is the second biggest Superman fanboy I've ever met in my life. Unfortunately, I grew up in the household with the other one, but this should be interesting.
Oh man, you have no idea. This should be really good. Okay, so you guys to the channel, you already know how big I am on Superman. Every chance I get to talk about Superman, I talk about him. Every comic that I introduce to you guys on Wednesdays for our new comic book day, if I'm not talking about Superman, I'm talking about new Superman. I'm talking about action comics. So you guys know it's all Superman, everything from, I mean, I have this shirt. I have a Man of Steel shirt. I have, so let's not even go there. So I am going to let Patrick and Lucas go first. I'm going to let Lucas and Patrick go first.
I would say you should at least give a synopsis of the movie so we know, like, we're not talking about the crappy Man of Steel movie. We're literally talking about Superman.
Oh, man. Why are we doing this? Not going to get triggered.
All right. Synopsis
Lucas
is important.
Is going to try.
Here's what I'll say. Synopsis is important because, in my opinion, this movie is two movies. It's two.
Pretty much. It is like if you look at this movie, okay, synopsis of the movie. Superman comes to Earth, or Krypton gets destroyed. Scientist from Krypton sends his son to Earth, and his son grows up as a human being, but with powers. He leaves his parents, goes to find where he's from, finds where he's from, and then goes to perform awesome feats. And then Luthor, a real estate criminal mastermind, Okay. A criminal real
You're
estate
fanboying out
mastermind.
so much. You can't even give a proper synopsis. You're just so you like the little kid who's at the theater and he's like, Dad, I can't wait. I can't
He
wait.
just watched it last weekend. He just watched it last weekend.
I have not seen this movie
All
in
right.
5 years. And let me try to get you. Let me give you a hand.
You do it.
Superman. That 1978 is the year the movie came out. Stars Christopher Reeve,
Yep.
Marlon Brando, Margot Kidder,
Yes.
Gene Hackman. It starts off as a story of Jor-El, which is played by Marlon Brando, arguing with Zod about some nefarious activities that take place as they're sending them to the Phantom Zone. In the same time, Jor-El is warning Krypton about the red sun exploding.
Wait. Can we stop right there? Wait.
Okay.
How big of a deal is it that they're setting Superman 2 up at the beginning of Superman 1?
That I found that to be very interesting. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a very interesting point that we're going to get to a little later.
Oh, all right.
It's trust me, it's something that I thought about, and I did a little bit more research because I haven't seen the movie in 5 years, so I like the backstory more than the movie. So we'll explain that later. But he sends his son to Earth just as Krypton explodes. When Kal-El arrives to Earth, he is 3 years old.
Yeah.
He's found by Martha and
Jonathan
Kent. There you go. They notice he has superpowers by him lifting up a truck. Names him Clark. I think at that point they kind of fast forward a little bit till he's 18.
Yep.
Am I right about that, Patrick?
Yeah, like high school age, senior. Yeah.
I think at this time Jonathan had already died of
No.
Jonathan dies while he's 18.
You watch him die on screen.
Yeah, it was kind of like sad.
Again,
and you cry. And if you don't cry,
is it like Martha?
Out. No,
why did they say his name?
No.
Why did they say his name? Like,
okay, let's keep this contained to 1978. Okay, Lucas, this is staying in 1978.
It's gonna be so hard. So, again, skip that part because I can't remember, and Mo was fanning out way too much to explain it. At that point, I do know that. Go ahead. Pick up at that point. There you go.
So, he's 18. He starts discovering his powers. Actually, he himself starts discovering his powers. He comes home from school after showing out or showing off, and he has this conversation with John and with Pa Kent, and Pa, Pa dies right on the spot, and he figures himself, I have all these powers and I couldn't save him, and he finds a crystal that I believe was on him, and he decides to go find more of himself or find where he's from. He does that, and he meets, he ends up creating the Fortress of Solitude. And
he goes to Antarctica, which is still weird. That's the place he went to.
Well,
a little weird.
If you,
I mean, it makes sense later once he's Superman. It's a little weird then, but it makes sense when he's Superman.
Because if you're discovering yourself and you're from Kansas, I don't think the first thing you're thinking is, man, I need to get to Antarctica so I can realize who I am.
Doesn't the crystal kind of drive him to Antarctica?
Or does it say made in Antarctica on the crystal?
They didn't really explain. They didn't really explain. You know what? Let me get through the synopsis and then we can get into discussion. Is that fine? Is that cool? Thank you. And so Jor-El kind of educates him. So he spends college years, 12 years in Arctic, and he finally goes. And then the first thing he does when he becomes Superman is go to Metropolis, gets a job at the Daily Planet. Then we get introduced to the world, to the bigger world. We meet Lois, we meet Perry. It's so hard to listen to this synopsis. No, there's a lot. And then No, not because Mo's doing a bad job. I don't want anybody to think that Mo's doing an awesome job. It is hard to listen to it because he becomes Superman, and the first thing he does is, I need to get a job. Hey, it's the late 70s. Everybody gets a job. What are you talking about? And so he gets a job. And let me see what his first day on the job after work. He and Lewis are walking down the street, and then they get mugged.
Oh yeah!
But then we finally see him demonstrate his powers, another power set,
Big callback scene with Wonder Woman.
Back to Wonder Woman. Okay, and then he does that, and we move past that into. Then we meet Lex. Lex kills a cop.
No, what?
Yeah, we meet. Yeah, he does kill a cop. Remember?
Okay.
Underground in the train on the train tracks.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the first part I remember. Is what's his name? I don't know. Tweedledum walking down under the subway.
What's his name? Otis.
Yes.
Otis is walking down.
This is when it goes off the rails for me. We have right now the movie we have is a pretty solid movie. And
pretty solid movie. And then
Otis shows up.
Lexington.
And it goes off the rails.
Is that where? Did it not go off the rails the day he got a job after becoming Superman?
No. Him getting a job's fine. Him defending Lois. Wait. Does the helicopter scene happen before or after Otis?
No, it happens after.
So, all right. We're okay then. I'm okay.
Then we find out Lex's plan. You know, that he's a criminal mastermind, which I have a problem with. But we'll talk about that later. He's a criminal mastermind.
The best leisure suit ever created. The best leisure suit ever created.
And then
no ball
helicopter scene.
Yep.
We got the ball head at the end of the movie. He had wigs.
Right.
All through the movie. And then the helicopter scene happens, you know, when Superman and Lois meet for the first time. He saves her. Then he goes on to catch like two criminals.
Yep.
And then a bunch of criminals on a boat. And then he saves a cat out of a tree.
Oh, yeah.
This is like the first day being
a boat in the middle of the street. That's awesome.
Superman was a street level hero.
Hey! It's first day on the job.
He was Daredevil.
It's his first day on the job.
Pretty much.
Give him a break.
Save the cat out of a tree, and then we get like the bigger scope of then Lex hatches this crazy plan. You know, after he meets, then we get back to Perry's like, we need to find out who he is. Someone needs to have an interview with him, and so Lois, you know, is of course the person who has this interview.
Of course she is.
You know, they have this scene where they fly and he's showing her the world. Pretty much. And then we get the headline. And then, of course, Lex reads this and Lex, you know, deduces, okay, this is how to destroy Superman. This is what he can't see.
That fast, though.
How did he refresh me? How did he deduce kryptonite so fast?
Nope.
Okay,
we're not going to talk about that yet.
I'm just doing a synopsis. No, we will go into it.
That into itself. Nope.
Okay, and
I
so
do love this movie, but
I love it.
It's making you question it a little bit. But it was the 70s. So
when you watch it when you get older, it's like, wow. But then when I watched it, I was a kid, and I was like, oh my, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Okay, so we get, you know, Lex, you know, hatches this plan. I'm gonna destroy, you know, California, whatever, you know, send California out into the sea and create my own new, you know, because I'm about real estate. And he gets kryptonite super fast, Game of Thrones level fast. Like we're talking about, fast.
Sends
travel
the Raven
fast.
out and it returns.
Exactly. He sent Jon Snow and them to get his kryptonite, and then they came back with the kryptonite.
And so he gets kryptonite, and now everyone is like, okay, great. He has this kryptonite necklace on Superman, and somehow tricks Superman into believing that he's going to destroy this city with this gas, kill half the population unless you know, come see me. And Superman goes to see him. Mind you, this is another thing I had a problem with. In the middle of the street, this guy creates a crater. Nobody said anything. There's a whole crater in the middle of the street. He puts this necklace on him, and his female assistant, who was kind of hot, by the way, saves Superman. I think I jumped something when
she saved Superman because her family was threatened in New Jersey, because that's where the bomb was originally going to go. And her family was in New Jersey, and Lex did not care that her family was in New Jersey.
There's two bombs.
Yes, there's two bombs.
And she agrees,
one of them was going to New Jersey.
She gets him to promise to take out the one to go into New Jersey first.
Yes, because that's the only way I'm going to save you is if you save my family.
Superman can't lie. So he gave her his word because he can't lie.
Yeah.
Oh man, this was pretty good. is like
that is not the word. That is not the word.
1978. I'm looking at the writer's room right now, like throwing ideas. Okay, so Hackensack, New Jersey.
Now the writer's room was people throwing rocks.
Here's the bad part, though. It's good because we think like, oh, it's only 1978, but Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. These are all movies that came out around this.
Calm down. We'll get to that.
This is a comic book movie, okay?
Well, it's divided. There are forces that want it to be a comedy movie.
Okay. We'll talk about that one after the synopsis and after he does the thing with Earth that makes no sense.
Yeah, well, that's a debatable moment, so we got to get to that.
So he stops. Obviously, she saves him. Whatever her name was, Miss. I call her whatever. She was hot though. I thought she was pretty cute. He stops the bomb going to Hackensack, New Jersey. Yes, she is. He stops the bomb going to Hackensack, New Jersey, and turns around. He can't stop the one going to the fault line, to the San Andreas fault line, but he fixes the fault line, saves Jimmy from a collapsing dam, saves a town from the flood, but somehow he isn't fast enough to save Lewis.
The school bus
Lewis dies. Oh yeah, the school bus, the train.
I mean, those special effects are awesome for their time. So
they still are. They still stand up pretty well.
Yeah,
I was watching and I was like, wow, this is not bad. He saves the train, saves the school bus, and then not fast enough to save Lewis. Lewis dies, and he's like, he gets upset. He flies up, and
credits roll, movie over.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Patrick. Damn it, thank you. Yes, that's what's supposed to happen there. That was supposed to happen.
That is what is supposed to happen. But someone in the writer's room said, fuck science. It's gonna happen.
We're not going to say writer's room.
Now, there's some debate here. So hang on.
We know why that happened. It's not a writer's room, but we know why that happened. But continue.
I'll be curious to hear how you describe it, Mo, because there's some debate about this.
He goes into space, and then when he goes into space, I have a problem with it anyway, so it's okay. When he goes into space, he hears the voice of Jor-El saying, "No matter what you do, you cannot end in human history." And he stops. Then he hears Pa Kent. Pa Kent says, "You were sent here for a reason." And then he hears his younger self say, all these powers I had and I couldn't save my dad. He says, buck this. Flies up into the atmosphere. Reverses the polarity of the Earth enough so that it goes to the exact point where, like the dam is broken. He doesn't fix the whole bomb situation. The bomb still goes off.
Nope.
In my mind.
Yes.
Now there's some debate. Whoa, Mo. So there's some debate as to whether he actually spins the Earth backwards or whether he is moving at a speed that is traveling through time. And so from your viewpoint, the Earth is making this motion, but he's actually just moving at such a speed that he's traveling back in time.
So
that is an awesome theory.
So
it's hotly debated.
So Flashpoint.
But unfortunately, according to the writing, that's not what
because you can tell me that he's moving super fast in time and then he stops. Lewis is saved.
Let's throw this out real quick because I think
he forwards the Earth polarity back to place. So you can
let's make the argument that you can say that, but let's be real.
Okay, so he reverses the polarity of the Earth, saves everyone, sets it back, comes back, almost makes out with Lewis, but then what's his name? Almost makes out with Lois, but what's his name? Jimmy.
Yep.
And he flies away. He grabs Luther.
Cog blocks after all he did to save Lois.
And Otis sets him down in jail and is credits roll, movie over. That is Superman the movie in a nutshell. That was kind of hard to get through because I couldn't get through without laughing. You have to you can't get through talking about this.
That makes me never want to see this movie again. Man, if someone had to give me that synopsis, and not just you, Mo, again, because you're awesome, but if someone gave me the synopsis of this movie, I'd be like, don't get this shit out of here. I'm not watching that.
No, seriously. I was thinking about it. If this movie, go ahead.
If I could fly up into the atmosphere and circle around the Earth to rewind so that Mo and Lucas were in the 70s and they could see the state of Superman in the comics in the 70s.
Oh, God.
You would think this movie was like gritty. It's gritty. It's very serious.
It is. Because Superman in the 70s in the comic books, it was a joke. He had at one point, couldn't he remove the S on his chest and throw it at you? Couldn't he create little tiny Superman?
He did that in Superman 2. That's Superman 2 when he did that.
Superman 2, everybody has any power they want. We can go into that later, but
all right. So this is how I'm gonna bring this back in and talk about Superman. I'm gonna let Patrick and I'm gonna let Lucas talk about the first time they saw this movie and what it did for them as kids, or however old you guys were. I'm not going to assume. When you saw this movie, the first time you saw it, what did it do for you? What did you feel? What did you think when you saw this movie?
Okay, so I didn't see this movie in theaters because I was born a year after this movie came out. So the first time I saw it was, thinking like early 80s HBO on that like one day where they would give you HBO or a week or whatever it was. You had HBO because we didn't have no money for HBO. And they're like, Superman is coming on. Superman is coming on. And it was like Superman 2 coming on. And I ran up and down my block gathering children. I am not kidding. To watch this movie. I was like, Superman. I don't know who this guy is, but he's like, Superman was in popular consciousness, probably like 83. Superman is going to be on television. So I had a bunch of kids from my neighborhood. We're all sitting on the floor. And my parents, I can see sitting on some crappy old 80s furniture behind me. And we're all like on the floor watching Superman. And I was in love because, I mean, if you can imagine seeing Superman and Superman 2 right away together on television, I mean, I was like, this guy. And the next thing I knew, all my toys were Superman. Every action figure I had was Superman. Every Matchbox car I had was Superman driving inside of it. It was like, Superman is everything. Superman is the best. So I think that's a 4-year-old's interpretation. It's kind of fun to think about my son who's 5 now and how he sees that kind of stuff. But it impacted me for the rest of my life for sure. How about you, Lucas?
So let's hear Lou talk about it. I'm not gonna talk. I will, but I'll keep mine really short because I can talk about it for an hour by myself. So, Lucas.
The weird part is I saw Superman 2 before I saw Superman 1. So again, very weird thing. Superman 2 is my favorite over Superman 1, but I remember when I saw Superman 1, again, at this point, I was hooked on Superman. He one of my favorite characters because Adam West and Batman will always be my favorite. But with Superman, it was just so awesome to see the guy fly, to see him save people. When the school bus was going and it was going to sink down, I thought everything was over. Superman saved that. It was hope. That's the best way to put it with Superman. When I first saw it, it was hope that no matter what can happen, there's always somebody there who can save you and rescue you. So as a kid, that's how I interpreted Superman movies, is that no matter what can happen in life, Superman's going to always be there to save me. That's how I saw it as a kid.
It seems so real, too. Like, it seemed real.
I thought I could actually peel an S off my chest and throw it at people. Like, that's how real it seemed.
We're not going to get into like his power sets in the 80s because he was rebuilding like the Great Wall of China like super fast. I'm not going to talk. We all know what movie that is, but let's not talk about the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I saw Superman. I believe I saw it twice. The first time I saw it, I barely understood what was going on, but all I remember was after seeing that movie, I wanted I wanted red trunks, I wanted a red cape, and I got it. So I know I saw it as a kid, and then I saw it like maybe a couple years after that, and then I understood what was going on, and I was like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life." Mind you, I've seen Star Wars, I've seen all these other movies, but I saw Superman. I was like, "This guy's flying. He's super fast. Like, man, I could take a girl up in the sky right now, and that's like guaranteed. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it was a lot. There was a
How old
like,
were you?
Let's just say I was like maybe 5.
Yeah.
6, maybe 7, old enough to understand what girls were at the time.
Oh man,
but
so
I'm
this
like,
is the mid-90s.
Don't you think
Yes.
Superman
Crazy.
connects with a 5-year-old in a way most heroes just can't connect?
Yes.
It was wild because all you want to do as a kid is you want to do everything right. You want to be that guy who doesn't lie, who doesn't drink, who doesn't smoke. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't know what those were at the age, but I wasn't going to.
I would hope so. Jesus, I would hope so.
I'm saying eventually, because Superman said don't do it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do it because Superman said don't do it. And then all of a sudden I find myself picking up Superman comic books every weekend with my mother, making her go through the worst of the worst to go with me to go pick up comic books. So we're picking up Superman comic books. So everything was Superman, like what Patrick said, Superman shirts, toys. I had a costume that I think I wore for like a year straight.
My parents had a rougher mo because I didn't have a costume. I just had the Superman pajamas. So my parents had to try and talk me out of those pajamas to walk out in the middle of the street every day. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine? Yes. Can you imagine?
Patrick, you had it a little bit better. I had the Superman underoos. And I never wanted to take them off.
And you wanted to wear them alone?
All the time, Joe. There was no such thing. I'm not bathing because if I bathe, I gotta take it off.
You gotta take it off.
It's not gonna happen.
I believe when I first got the costume, first time I got the Superman costume, I literally wanted a suit so I could wear a suit on top of it and go to school. So if anything happened in school, I would be like this. Yo, I'm like, it was life for me. And you can see how I'm talking about him now. It's so much for me that I watched all the Superman movies, and at the time I was like, none of these were bad. But like, you know, later on I was like, okay, these are awful movies. But just because I loved Superman so much, I couldn't see a bad Superman movie. That was Superman for me. And it all started from Superman. So we've all talked about how we felt about the movie, what it made us feel like. Now let's actually dig into this movie. I have one question before we get into it. Before we get into this,
you're about to kill a nice little spot in my childhood that I managed.
I'm killing
to kill a little bit today. I killed it a little bit when I tried to research this earlier today. Man.
Let me ask you a quick question. If this movie came out today in 2017, let's just imagine that none of the other superhero movies have happened. This is still the first superhero movie. It came out today. All the movies we've seen the writing, we've seen, you know, like, let's just imagine we've seen The Matrix, all these other movies that Superman inspired, but they've all happened. First comic book movie, and it comes out today.
Fucking
is this
sucks.
movie?
Well, let's not try to sugarcoat it here. This movie would be absolutely horrible.
Like, what would Rotten Tomatoes say? Rotten Tomatoes would be like 0.
I would say in some ways that what you're describing is what Singer was trying to do with Returns, right?
Oh,
yes.
Exactly. Yep.
Because pretty much was Superman the movie with all of its
campiness and everything that made it great.
Just everything that made it great and made it bad at the same time was what Superman Returns was.
But that's another movie altogether, because my feelings for Superman Returns does not match most people's feelings for Superman Returns. I would say Superman Returns is the 3rd best Superman movie ever made. Like, nothing else compares to that.
Okay.
But
Patrick.
I didn't get what there. I can go there. We'll go
what you were about to say. I didn't hear what your answer on if this movie came out today. Like, would it have made the impact that it made?
This is the problem in some ways. I mean, I can shout and scream about Snyder all day long, but one of the problems Snyder or DC faces right now is I think we're too cynical for this Superman today. Like, we as a society can't handle the optimism of Superman as it existed in 1978.
Nope. This is true.
He's way too positive.
because at the moment when he says to Lois, "I'm here to fight for truth, justice, and the American way," and I'm like, "What American way in 2017?" Okay,
like, whose American way are you fighting
do you
for?
know? You're like, do you know who they shooting now? Agreeing with you, man.
It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So yes, that's the question I wanted to ask. But
it's a movie written for its time period, which that's not a problem at all.
Yes, at all.
Because it should be judged. It should be judged based off of its time period, and that means that you don't have to be from that time period, but you have to recognize what movies were playing, how they were playing during that time,
right?
And then that's how you could critique a movie like this.
Right. All right, so that's the question I wanted to ask. So now, because we know this is how we're going to critique the movie. Now let's get into this movie itself. And it spends about 20 minutes, 20 minutes in Krypton. I knew this because I watched it again last weekend, and I kept pausing to take chapter notes. Like, okay, so Krypton, 20 minutes. But what Lucas was saying, you said it felt fast.
But yeah, I mean, like Krypton, it's like a blink. It doesn't feel like it's a full 20 minutes of the movie.
Nope. But Snyder's feels so much longer in Man of Steel than this one does.
To be honest, no. If you want to bring Man of Steel into this, Snyder spent just about the same amount of time, maybe 10 minutes over in Krypton.
See, but then that's where the craft of filmmaking comes into play, because this one does not seem 20 minutes long. In all honesty, I'd have thought it was like 7 minutes they spent in Krypton. The point it was 20 minutes is awesome film.
Does that include the music? Because remember, the music's like 20 minutes alone.
Exactly. Yeah. Snyder felt like he was in Krypton for an hour. I was in an hour with Snyder with Avatar.
Because it did feel like two different movies. Man. It did feel like two different movies. It felt like Krypton was its own movie, because Krypton could have been its own movie for Man of Steel. And we're not talking Man of Steel. We're talking Superman the movie. So we spend about so the song is about 5 minutes long. The intro with the kid reading the whatever he was reading, the excerpt, and then it spends another 15 minutes in Krypton. So it's and we get to meet Jor-El.
It's a good healthy amount.
Yeah, we get to meet Superman's parents, but then we also meet the setup, like Lucas was saying, for Superman 2, which is kind of crazy, because I was watching the movie and I was like, oh my God, this is literally happening in my eyes right now. This is this like where it got set up from? And so we see all that happen. But one thing one note I took, and I was like, this is really important. If you look at Krypton again in this movie, Krypton is an Arctic environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like a crystal environment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looked super crystallized, and it's probably ice. Sense why the fortress and the crystal would drive him where it drove him, in my opinion. But I would like.
You will not make that connection. Wait, I will not allow you to make that connection. Nope.
Before we even go there. Okay. I'm losing you. You there?
Yeah, we're here.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
One thing I'd add into that is I think even the 80s was starting to get some of that cynicism, and they cheated with that short little intro saying, you know what I mean? They talk about this is taking place in the past, a different time. Yes. So they're able to even then cheat some of the cynicism that's already starting to exist by putting it in the past. Whereas Man of Steel and Superman Returns, they're all trying to put Superman in the present, and that creates some of the problems we see.
Well, that's why you get emo Superman now. Always moping around.
We get Jor-El as Al
killing
Gore,
people, snapping their necks. Sad Superman.
We get Jor-El as Al Gore warning the elders of Krypton. Look, climate change is happening. This is about to, And so, what were your thoughts on the opening? Like, all of Krypton up to when they send Kal-El to Earth.
I mean, to me,
don't all go at once.
To me, this is like the beginning of Krypton as we think of it in popular consciousness. Because, like in the comics, Krypton's not really well defined, and then they do this, and then from then on, that is Krypton. Every Krypton from then on is compared. Like even Burns, like Man of Steel, is compared to the Marlon Brando Superman movie Krypton. crystals becomes like a huge part of the Superman mythology that doesn't even exist in the Superman mythology.
No, it really, that's the thing about it now. It's like now you can't have Superman anything anywhere. Even Supergirl, the CW TV show, has crystals in it.
Everybody has crystals now.
You have to have crystals in Superman, except for Man of Steel. You don't have.
You don't like that, Lucas?
No, I don't like that.
Really interesting. What is it you don't like about it?
It's
so 80s. Like it's like a Prince video turned into a movie with everyone with crystals. Oh man.
You know the best part about it? The reflective outfits they had on. It was so dope.
Oh my god. Oh god. No. Fix it, Jesus. No. But
can we talk about Marlon Brando?
It's an advanced civilization.
Exactly. So you can wear reflective surfaces and then have like your family.
Let's talk about Marlon Brando. Let me move this away from the crystals.
Yes. So let's talk about Marlon, because he was pretty dope.
His cue cards.
Jor-El.
Yes. Say it again, Patrick. Damn it! I want to point at you. Let me point. Say it again.
His cue cards.
Cue cards. Yes. And the point that he wasn't the first choice to play this role. I don't believe he was even the second choice. I know for a fact the first choice was Paul Newman, and Paul Newman turned him down because they told Paul Newman, you can be Superman, Jor-El, or Lex Luthor. We don't care. We want you in one of these roles, and he turned him down for all of them.
Oh, that's awesome. But he's like super cool. He could have done that. Like
he'd have been awesome as Jor-El.
Especially
he'd have been awesome as Jor-El. Yeah.
So, quick question then. Let's compare because we have 2 movie Jor-Els now. Let's compare Jor-Els. Who is the better Jor-El to you?
Oh, you gonna do that?
No, I did that for Lucas. Because Lucas wants to trigger me, so I'm going to ask triggering questions right now. So before you get triggered,
that's like comparing which one was the better hurricane, Harvey or Irma. Like
no. Come on, man. All right, Marlon Brando. Despite cue cards, despite bad uniform, despite it all, he does add a gravitas to his words. He adds a little Shakespearean flair to his words.
That is true, but he did that in I Love Dr. Moreau also. So I can't give him credit for that.
Go back and watch the Superman Returns trailer when they first just show Superman with like the Marlon Brando voiceover. And
that was pretty cool. Yeah. We thought we were gonna get a good Superman movie with that one. As soon as you saw Brando, it was like, "Oh, this is about to be great," and it's like.
But I'm gonna say that Russell Crowe was better.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear from Lucas. That's all I wanted to hear from Lucas.
No.
I won.
And the only reason I'm saying Russell was better, not because he speaks, because if Russell Crowe could not speak, that would be awesome. But they show way more of action scenes with Jor-El, not the shitty stuff in Krypton. But just for that spaceship scene in Man of Steel, it's better than what Marlon had to do in the 10 days he shot Superman.
But I would say that's because they had that to build on from like Burns' Man of Steel.
Pretty much.
I would also say it has to do with the point that Marlon Brando told them, you got 8 days, and I'm not doing anything. he literally did, like, again, that's something else.
I can't defend that.
That's something else you got to bring up because that plays a huge part in the way
he made more money too. When those
he did. He
made more money than 20 minutes. Everyone else in all the movies. In all the movies, you take all the money he's making in all the movies.
He wasn't in for like maybe 14 minutes, and if you add like the
and that was a stipulation he put in his contract that he couldn't be put in there longer than that.
Even if you add the Fortress of Solitude parts, it's like maybe 17 minutes totally. Marlon Brando was in that movie for 17 minutes.
I'm not going to defend Brando as a person, but I think his voice,
his performance was pretty cool. His voice
powerful.
Was
God
awesome.
is powerful.
Like it was, you felt like you were in another society with anytime Brando was speaking. Like it felt really, you felt really powerful. And you know, it's funny.
Can I add Terrence Stamp from Smallville on that list as Jor-El?
Yes, you actually should, because he would be number one then.
Yeah.
And I hated Smallville, but still, I know he would be better.
Yep.
You're right. You know what? You're right. All right, so Clark on his way to Earth, so Krypton happened, it blew up. The first thing is, what's funny to me is everyone, laughs at General Zod and Man of Steel yelling, "I will find him." But if you go back,
that's one of the best parts of Man of Steel.
That was really powerful.
That
but I've seen people
passion
meme it, and I've seen
with.
people laugh at it. But if you go back to this movie, Terrence Stamp did an amazing, something similar to that. But it wasn't "I will find him." It's like, you will bow to me and your heir or some shit like that. So it was like, wow, like that was powerful.
Think about this.
It took everything in me not to scream Michael Shannon's, because I was about to do it. I will find you.
Think about this though. Think about this.
So intense.
Think about this. So we both, I saw Superman 1 and 2 together, right? You saw Superman 2 first, right? Lucas, right? Imagine you see this amazing villain, right? You see this amazing villain in Terrence Stamp at the open of Superman 1, and then you fast forward, and then the villain you actually get for the movie.
God, I'd been so.
Who's this guy?
God.
What happened to that? I want that other guy back.
We're gonna get into Gene Hackman's performance as Lex, because it's so funny, because if you get into his performance as Lex, you can draw Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor and be like, I could put you guys on top of each other, and this is the same exact thing I'm looking at. Like, it's okay. And but he doesn't even get a pass as Lex. Like, I don't know what they were doing with movie Lex back in the day.
Casting for money purposes.
Pretty much. They didn't respect Lex Luthor.
I think Jane was coming off French Connection somewhere around that time. So he was a huge actor to get for that role. Again,
it's not even.
I would say
the caliber of actor. It's not even the caliber of the actor. It's just the character itself. They were like, we're going to go with this Lex Luthor as opposed to going with.
You got to go back to the comics. Look at Lex Luthor in the 70s in the comics. He's like Robin Banks with giant robots and stuff like that. He's not what we think of as Lex Luthor.
And also go through, and I think the behind the scenes play a huge part in this film. So they went through 3 scripts for this film. I want to say the first one was Mario Puzo, who was coming off of the Godfather movies. They asked him to write a script for Superman 1 and 2. He wrote a script. The script was long as fuck, and and too serious, which should, like, when they say too serious, and you see this movie, which was considered kind of serious, you gotta wonder. Was he trying to make The Dark Knight with Superman in the 70s? But after him, I forget the other 2 writers they brought in to fix it. And then right after them, Richard Donner scrapped everything and went with a different writer to write it. So when you're going through 3 different scripts for what was at the time the most expensive movie ever made, you're going to have some of these flaws in it. Because that's way too much to go through to get this.
You definitely did. That's the difference, I would say, between the Star Wars trilogy and Superman 1 and 2.
Yes.
Let's just do is that in Star Wars you have, I'm not saying George Lucas is any kind of genius, but he had a clear vision. He took that vision. He made sure his directors took that vision. It was focus. Superman, you have 30 people pulling in 30 different directions at all times on what those movies became.
Right.
Oh God. I got to say this because I don't want to forget it. One, thanks, Patrick, for bringing that up, because it will also bring up the point that George Lucas was approached to do this film and turned it down. That's one.
Nobody wanted to do this movie.
Everybody who turned down this film probably looked at all the drama and was like, thank goodness.
It's not that George didn't want to do it, but the weird part is, as they asked him to do this film, he was actually doing Star Wars. At the exact time that they asked him to do Superman. Because they start the production before, right? Yep. The biggest one and the funniest part of it all was that they approached Steven Spielberg to do it. And Warner Brothers, in all their wisdom at the time, decided to tell Spielberg, we don't want you. they didn't want. Well, let me not tell Spielberg, but they decided not to give him the offer until after Jaws came out because they wanted to see if Jaws would work before giving him this movie. Just imagine if instead they would have said, "We're going to give you this movie," because by the time they approached him for it, he was doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, so he had to turn them down.
Yeah,
but they had a gap of time in there where they could have got Spielberg to do this film and turned him down because they wanted to see if Jaws would be a success.
Maybe, but
you understand that does make sense. I mean, given all the discussions we have about Hollywood and their greedy movie executives, that makes sense.
Well, and also,
like, as much as I want to say that's a horrible idea, but as a movie executive, you didn't know how he was going to pan out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know if Jaws was going to be successful. Would they like his version of Superman? It's a lot. Come on.
But the weird part is Richard Donner wasn't coming off of anything that would have. I mean, he was coming off The Omen 2. There's no way in hell I'm going to go for him over Steven Spielberg. Because even if Jaws is a flop, it's fucking Steven Spielberg. Like, come on, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. I think the history of how this movie was made is just as interesting as the movie that you ended up
getting. There needs to be a documentary on that. Except no
seriously,
talk about it probably.
Nah. Okay, so now let's get back to Superman. Let's get back to Superman the movie because we're talking about executives now. All right, so Jor-El, Krypton is gone. Superman is on his way. Kal is on his way to Earth, and in his pod, he's learning. Like this is like the best thing that you could do for a baby. You start teaching him early. And by the time he gets to Earth, he's like 3 years old, but he knows everything now. He's like super smart. So like Kal-El is smart on his way to Earth, and then he lands in Smallville. And we get Pa Kent. Oh, what's his name?
Jonathan
Kent.
Jonathan, and why did you say her name? Why did you say her name?
Save.
I'm not gonna do that every time you say her name. I'm sorry. Every time you say her name, I'm gonna do that.
We get Pa and Ma Kent. Aha. Gotcha. So he crashes and they rescue him, and somehow they have a flat while they're about to, doing the crash, which nobody saw that flat happening, but it happened anyways. This is another thing I noted. Superman is the first movie, obviously it's the first comic book movie, but a lot of comic book movies have taken from this and said, we're going to do things that we're not going to explain. We're going to give Pa and Ma Kent right now a flat tire out of nowhere, just at the same time this kid is crashing at the exact same moment, so they can't have a reason to stop. Still stop, right? If you were driving and you saw a meteor fly over your head, would you stop?
But they needed Superman to lift up the car. It's all set up for that.
Yes.
Has nothing to do with stopping. It has everything to do with putting a scene in there where a little boy lifts up a car.
Lifts the car. Well, that makes sense. So he does that, and at first, Pa Kent is like, Martha, we can't keep him. No, Ma Kent, we can't keep him. Like, Martha, we can't keep this kid. Like, who?
I was about to say it just as you corrected yourself.
someone is gonna come find him. So like, what? Eventually, Ma Kent convinced Jonathan to keep him, and he grows up in Kansas, and now he's in school. So we find I keep calling him Superman. We find Clark, which I think is named after her sister.
Her father.
What way to decide to explain it?
Her maiden name. I'm sorry, it's her maiden name. If I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. I think that's right.
See, showing my knowledge without ever reading a comic book. That's what I'm talking about.
But that's the comic book version. In the movie, I don't think it was. But
no, in the movie, it's her father's maiden name. That's why they name him.
Yes. Yeah. So they named him Clark. He's like the water boy or equipment manager for the football team. Like what? He's getting no type of tail in 1978. He's like a loser. No one likes him. He gets bullied, and he gets invited to this party by Lana. We get to meet Lana.
I think that's a change too from the comics. So I think in the comics he plays football and does all kinds of
exactly, because in Smallville he played football. Like
Yeah.
And he was a stud. So he was getting everyone in Smallville. But in the movie, they decided to really make him really humble and keep him, thing to show his powers early on. But somehow he chases a train, gets home super fast and watches Pa Kent die, which to me at the time, just seeing him and his father die, I was like hurt. And then like watching it now, I'm like, wow, that's kind of stupid. Like,
what?
That makes no sense. No, watching it now today, it's like that makes no sense. Just like in Man of Steel, those two.
All right. That's a different. No, listen. Please don't compare the hurricane death to this.
Exactly.
I'm out.
Nope.
I can't.
Exactly. Hey, look.
You can't compare a hurricane death. Stay back.
I let you get away already with calling this the first superhero movie. I let you get away with that. You will not bring up that fucking horrible scene in there where Jonathan Kent holds his hand up and emotionless Clark Kent watches his father die.
He was emotional. He was like, no. I mean, they just had a fight where he was like, you're not even my dad.
Being emotional, but it was dumb.
He showed more emotion killing Zod than he did watching his father die. How is that possible?
They just had a fight. He was like, you're not my dad.
Okay. Jonathan, so
if
you really want to get into Man of Steel, the Kents are the things that are missing from Man of Steel. Like the reason Man of Steel, everything is wrong with Man of Steel is the Kents. Because they are like what grounds Superman.
Fair. That's fair. But okay, so in this
why do they have to die?
Huh? Why does Paul have to die?
Is it? Yeah.
I believe necessary? No, because in a lot, well, maybe in the actual comics he does die, but in every other American Alien he doesn't die.
He dies in the comics in the 70s, and then when they reboot with Crisis, he stays alive.
Yeah, when the reboot, he's alive because he doesn't die till later on. I mean, in Rebirth, he is dead, I believe. Or pre-Crisis Superman, this
pre-Crisis he's dead
because
post-Crisis
pre-Crisis. No, in 52. Because Rebirth storyline, right? Anyway, so he died.
Patrick, let me do my research. First.
I think the reason why Pa Kent dies is so Clark can come into could fully realize himself. Because for some reason, Pa was always holding him down. Like, okay, you are here for a reason, but right now, don't use your powers. Don't do this. Even in that movie, he told him not to use his powers around, not to show off. In the early movie, he was like, don't show off, don't show out.
Mm-hmm.
In that scene where he dies in the funeral home at the funeral, he's like, with all of the powers I have, and I couldn't save him. He has that emotional moment. He needs that emotional moment. Again, that emotional moment comes in at the end of the movie with the whole Lois rotation thingy. But that I think that's where that ties into that.
So
that's why it happened in this.
Instead of rotating the world to rescue his father, instead he rotates the world to rescue.
Wait. That's unfair. He doesn't know he can do that yet. He doesn't even know he can fly yet, right?
That's true, but once he discovers he can do it,
because when he did this,
but Jor-El says don't go back and don't mess with
whatever
stuff.
you do, don't mess with stuff.
Maybe that's why he goes back only a little bit. Maybe
because it wasn't a lot. It was just this much.
It was just a little time change, just a tiny bit
to rescue someone he wanted to sleep with. That's it.
Basically.
Sorry, Dad, I can't save you, but
that's true.
That right there, I got to get that, so I'm gonna have to go back and save him.
I mean, you have to continue your line. I mean, your dad already lived, so it's fine. I'm trying to continue. I'm trying to continue the next line of.
Mm-hmm. We're not even gonna ask how it's humanly possible for aliens to make.
And according to Superman Returns,
gonna leave all of that alone. Gonna leave all of that alone.
Superman Returns, it happens.
Yes, and that's the part that until you explain to me alien DNA from Krypton,
Look,
and how that's humanly possible.
And right now, there's a Superboy in the comic, so don't ask me questions I don't have the answers to, bro.
But
How about
Superboy is a
that?
clone, right?
Yeah, Superboy's different.
Nope.
Superboy's a clone.
John Kent. John Kent, as in a Rebirth, is his son. There is Superboy.
So wait a
Rebirth
minute.
right now?
Wait a minute. Because I don't read comics.
This is what.
So now I have questions. So he has a son, and instead of naming him after his real, he names his son after his fake Earth dad. Are you crazy?
No, hey, no. That's
at this point, Superman is more
connected to Jonathan than he is to
more
Jor-El.
connected to Jonathan than he is to Jor-El.
How? He built a
What are you talking about? How?
He built a whole fortress of solitude.
One man
for
adopted him and raised him, and the other man just shot him off in a spaceship.
Oh, no, not true. Because if we go by Superman 1, he was with Jor-El in a fortress of solitude for 12 years straight.
Yeah, but that all right,
12 years.
Let me ask you this: Are you going to name your son? Are you going to name your son after your college professor, or are you going to name your son after the man who raised you?
Point.
Well, no.
Point, Patrick.
Again, nope. That's 12 years. If I'm in college for 12 years with the same professor,
some people are.
A kid is getting named after him if I'm there for 12 years with him.
All right. And so Pa Kent dies, and then, he's like sad and all, mopey, almost like 2013 Superman. No shade. He's really sad. So he can't sleep one night, and then he wakes up and he feels the vibrations of the crystal. He finds the crystal in the barn, which I had a problem with because in all of the comics, or the Kents were the ones who said, look, as a kid, we found you here. I was like, you should have done that. At most you could have done, but it's whatever. At least not just like how it happened, because it happened. He finds the crystal. He tells his mom he has to leave, and he leaves. And she's just like, go ahead. I knew this day would come.
For 12 years. For
And
12 years he leaves.
I mean, some of that is, don't you think some of that's editing and time that they don't want to deal?
Yeah, of course. Game of Thrones,
quickly through these. They want to get to Christopher
But they should
Reeve.
have. Yeah, I think you got to move quick. You got to move quick. It's movie magic 101.
I think you should the Kents should have shown him his heritage, and then you can do whatever you want after that. Jump however far you want.
That's
but
fair.
He spends an inordinate amount of time with Jor-El learning Krypton, and I don't know if he was learning Earth because.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
learning powers also.
Learning powers. So now he can fly. He has this suit. He flies to Metropolis, and he gets a job.
Oh god! I
tried. Look, again, this is the movie that changed everything for me as a kid. But still, when you sit back and you watch it,
I mean, that's
your problems. And
he's like, the
thing is, this movie is still never going to
be stronger than a locomotive. I need a job. That's what I need.
This movie is never going to be bad. I'm never going to watch this movie and be like, oh, this is horrible. But I am going to point out the problems. If I am, as fair as I want to be, I'm going to point out the problems this movie had and things I liked and things I didn't like. I love this movie, by the way. But for what it was, as campy as it was, I found myself laughing at a lot of the stuff in this movie. But
as well as you should.
He gets a job, and he becomes mild-mannered Clark Kent. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching mild-mannered Clark Kent trying to open up a soda bottle, a pop bottle for Perry, and he's having a hard time. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Just pop this joint. Like, what is wrong with you? Lois grabs it from him, shakes it, hands it back to him, and then it fizzes everywhere. We get to meet, it's all gee golly and golly whiz, and
that's Christopher Reeve, right? Because Christopher Reeve has this idea that everybody would just immediately look at Clark Kent and look at Superman and think that's the same guy. So Christopher Reeve's take on that is that I'm going to make Clark so buffoonish that nobody would ever even think that this guy could be Superman.
Right. And you know what's great about that is was it American Alien? I don't think it was American Alien, but one of the Superman books, the writer took it and said, look, at what we're gonna do is you're fit as Clark Kent. You have all, you're fit. Like I think Martha was telling
Why did you say her name? Why did you say her name?
In the comic, Martha was telling, you're fit, you have broad shoulders, so we're gonna get you a jacket that's a size bigger than yours, so it doesn't show your shoulders. You're gonna have to slump. You're gonna wear glasses. You're gonna do all these things that would, distract people from what Superman really is. And it's amazing how a lot of the writers in the comic books now are taking, Reeves' version of Clark and Superman. Maybe they're modifying it, not so much where it's gee golly, but it's like, we're going to take from this and we're going to make Superman and Clark Kent super different with this. But really, I'm watching the movie and I think where Lois goes on, Clark comes to pick Lois up for the date. He takes the glasses off and as soon as he takes the glasses off, he's hunched and he stands up straight, chest out. Lois comes out of the room and she still doesn't notice. And I think that's because she just had the whole, adventure with Superman or whatever. And she's still like head in the clouds or whatever. But I'm like, this guy's standing right in front of you, man. Just look at him.
Now,
look at him.
Anthony would like me probably to say that one of the reasons
know what? That's another trigger too. And I let it go. Sorry, Patrick. But that was another trigger when he kept on saying, look at him, because then it triggers a Joker. And I just let it go. Because of that, look at me. Like, it triggers shit. You got to be very careful with me with those type of triggers. But go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, I was just going to say, Anthony always likes to bring up the fact that nobody thinks Superman has an alter ego. Like, it's not like Superman goes around saying he has a alter ego. They just assume he's Superman all the time. So they're not even looking for an alternate identity to Superman.
Yes.
True.
All right, Mo, I'm going to give you something right here. Hold on, I'm going to give you something real quick here.
Shoot.
This is where Man of Steel got it right over this movie. Man of Steel had him be Superman way before he had the alter ego of Clark Kent. Meaning, before he revealed himself to the public as Clark Kent with a Daily Planet. I think that's the best way. Even though it's contrary to the comics, it's the best way to do for movies. Is to have him be Superman first. Because go ahead, Patrick.
I think the best way is Birthright, where you see him not in suit.
That's what I was thinking about. Is
being
Birthright
Superman, going around the world doing Superman stuff, but he's not like cape and costume yet. But he's like coming into his own.
Yeah, because he went to Africa to write that report, and there's a bunch of things that happen, and he is Superman, right? And that's where
they play part of that in Man of Steel.
Yeah, Snyder took
that Man of Steel,
and where he's going around the world, saving people and doing all the things. What I did like, however, is how in Man of Steel, the one thing I will give you in Man of Steel is how I like that. A lot of people might take issue with this, but I do like that Lewis, a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist,
figures it out way faster.
Yes, because if Lewis is who she is, she can't walk around every day with this guy and not think for a second. I just she's an investigative journalist, and that's her job. That's her job.
Now, in the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, doesn't she do that?
Yes.
Yeah, and then he kisses her.
No, not in Superman 2. In the Richard Donner Superman 2.
Oh, in the Richard
Donner's cut. Yeah.
She pulls a gun on him and says, "I know you're Superman," and shoots at him, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But in the actual movie,
God forbid he wasn't Superman.
Oh, right?
She was shot. She cast somebody, went to jail.
Or he has some power where it has to recharge, so he's not Superman in that moment, and then
So anyways, he has his job now, and he meets everyone. And then this is tricky because on the first day of the job, the day's over, they're walking into the they're walking on the street. He's trying to get some info on Lois, like, hey, what's up with you? Let me take you to dinner and whatnot. And the this is the most improbable mugging I've ever seen in my life. Because this dude puts his hand out. He's like, "Come here." Like, come here.
hey! For the first 5 years of my life, I thought this was exactly what every mugging looked like.
Oh God!
That you be walking through the street and someone's like, "Hey, you, come here." Like,
I was just waiting for it to happen.
And it's funny because Lewis is like, "Let's just keep walking," and that made sense to me because I would just keep walking. I just go like, "No, I'm not about to." What? You're not gonna shoot me in broad daylight unless I walk into the alley. Like, seriously. And so they walk into the alley, and because Clark is like, "We better do what he says." Excuse to show Superman's powers again before Superman. And he walks into the alley, he shoots, he grabs it, he passes out. Which again, and I'm looking at like, yeah, like really, you're just gonna pass out? Whatever. You know, Wonder Woman did it better. It's cool. And boom, we get, you know, that happens, and we get Superman now. Like, now we're going into like the movie itself. Now we get Lex, we get, you know, we get Otis, and
this is where we go downhill, in my opinion.
And the movie just turns on its head because once you get Otis and Lex in the same scene, and you know, I'm like, wow, this is no.
I know there was
even then as a
I know there's camp before that, but it was like, to me, a tolerable level of camp. And then once we get to Gene Hackman, it's like, this is a different movie. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, because the movie was campy. But
Right.
once you introduce Lex and Gene and Otis, it just finds a whole new level of camp.
But keep in mind, they didn't think this was camp back then. They actually thought this was serious filmmaking.
Again,
no.
Patrick has said it. Patrick has said it. Go through the comic book.
If you think about the writing of it, and when they brought on Richard Lester, am I saying his name right?
I think so.
The director for the second film. That's one of the things they blame him for, because they said he brought camp into Superman because they did not see this as being camp, which kind of makes sense if you see other movies in the 70s.
Sure.
It's just not that campy.
No.
It's not. It's not Adam West.
It is now. Yeah.
It's not Adam West, because
that was camp, was Adam West. This was more a little comic relief. That's how they took it.
I just hate Gene Hackman as Lex. I think I just hate 70s era Lex Luthor, and we're stuck with him in that movie. Is basically what it comes out to.
Pretty much.
I'm not arguing that it's good. It's absolutely horrible, but just trying to explain the camp part.
And then you know, Lex part happens pretty quick because that was really quick. We get him, he's in, he's out, boom. Now we're about to get Superman. This is another problem I had. So Superman, you have super hearing, and this helicopter shenanigans is going on the top of the roof, and you have to come all the way out the building to actually, first of all, see it and hear it. Fine, whatever. You know, it's an excuse for him to change, for us to see him change, because you can't just have him change into the super suit without
us seeing it.
Yeah,
we have to see it.
We have to
see it. Necessary.
And it's a stupid scene, but it's also a really good scene because that pimp, he was like, "Yo, that's fly," and I loved it.
It took everything to keep that in the moment you said it. Oh God, that is the worst thing humanly possible that happens in this movie. That's fly. Are you fucking kidding me?
I had like forgotten. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm coming off fresh off from this weekend, so you guys should bear with me. That's fly, and he flies up as soon as the pimp says that. He saves Lois, and we get one of the best lines. Or one of again, a pretty good line for me. It's like, "Hey miss, I've got you. You've got me. Who's got you?" I thought some of the lines were pretty good.
Yeah, those lines are fine.
I don't care what anyone says. Those lines were pretty cool. And so he saves her. And who are you, a friend? You know, I hope this is not going to turn you off from flying in. The lines stick with you for like a lot, right? Because who's got
iconic?
You? Yes, and that's his first. I think that's his first act of heroism, is saving Lois.
And then he goes crazy.
Then he just like montage of solving. Like, yes,
he's saving everybody, cats, Everything, man. He's like, I can't get enough of this saving. It's like it's cocaine. He just hooked. I gotta save you.
The best part is
the big part of who he is, though. Like that's what's missing in Man of Steel. Superman
he's so good.
Man of Steel Superman ain't going to save no cat.
No, Man of Steel Superman is not going to act.
Would burn that cat alive.
Man of Steel Superman would let Zod kill the cat.
But that's what's missing is that Superman cares even about this little girl with a cat.
Yes. It's a certain.
All right, so
it's campy, but it's a certain amount of
that's
feelings
what
that
made
go
your
along with
5-year-old
what
heart.
You want your Superman. Yes. Not mine. I didn't care about the cat.
It's so funny because
fuck that cat.
But it's no, I didn't care about the cat. It was about the boat. Like he's on the boat and the criminals are looking at him, and then the guy's coming up from behind him, and he smacks him with the crowbar, and then and then that was pretty cool. And then the cop is telling his boss.
I say what the cat scene is it's for us as little kids. It's that moment some bully's going to be picking on us in a schoolyard.
That Superman is going to save you.
Superman will fly down and protect you. That Superman is not so big that he can't come and help a little kid out of
that's true,
little
because
kid problem.
All the craziness is happening. There's this crime here, there's a crime there, and all of that is happening, but he takes time out of his busy schedule to rescue a cat out of the tree. And that's,
before the cynicism of Family Guy kicked in and Spider-Man saying, everybody gets one. What? Leave me.
He saves the cat.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
You know what, Mo? Let me say this, Mo. You are freaking fanning out because we did a synopsis and you're doing it all over again.
No, I want to talk
point by point in this movie. Skip ahead to a review or something instead of going point by point.
Let's get to the review. All right, let's get to the review. I'm sorry. You're right. Let's get to the review. All right, so characters that we absolutely loved in this movie. I personally, the character that I absolutely like, this is like, if he wasn't in this movie or if she wasn't in this movie, who are those people for you? Your 5-year-old heart could just like, are we just gonna all say Superman at this point?
I mean, can we take Reeves off the table? Because I
feel like we should.
Yeah.
It's
you gotta take Superman off of the character, but now because mine would still be Margot Kidder. I loved her in this movie growing up.
She was mean though.
She seemed smart, even though she didn't figure out Superman.
Oh, she did, and then didn't.
She just seemed real smart and real assertive in the movie. And I remember thinking, young Lucas, like, wow, more women should be this assertive. It was very weird, very, very weird. Like she just, like to me in my head for a while, that was like the image of a strong woman. Is the thing she did with Lois Lane, which is dope because that means little girls saw it. And it made them think the same thing, and that they could accomplish things, which is awesome.
Pretty much.
That's a big gamble too in 1978.
Is let a woman like be a standout character as she was, because she did things on her own and she called the shots a lot of the time. So I would agree with Lucas and go with Margot Kidder as one of my Lois Lane is one of mine too. I'm sorry. Patrick,
as the one that has to be in it. I don't know. I think Marlon Brando really sets a tone for me, even though all the reasons we described. I just think all right, here's why he's important. He makes the movie feel serious at the opening. He makes the movie feel serious at the opening.
Yes.
If that doesn't happen, the whole thing falls apart.
Yes. You needed, you're right, because you needed that movie to start off the way it started off, because if you were going to have everything that happened in this movie happen, you needed it to start
if opening scene is Otis, we're done. Oh
man, I think
they say, you know what you do? Get the Godfather in here.
Yeah,
and we're gonna knock it out of the park with that.
And his voice again was really commanding. He when he was talking to the council, like granted it felt very reedy, but when he was speaking, his speaking voice made it sound a little more serious. Like
everything sounds reedy for Marlon Brando. I don't care what it is. Does not matter.
So, all right. So from the beginning of the movie, let's talk about the first half of the movie real quick. We have a little bit of time. Let's talk about the first half of the movie. What was the absolute part of the first half of the movie that had you saying, "Okay, wow, this is like really great right now"? You know, before. Do we do before Lex or the first half?
Yeah, let's do pre-Otis.
Okay, so pre-Otis, what was the part of the movie that had you saying, "Wow, this looks like it could be really, really great"?
I don't know. Part of it is the John Williams score. So first of all, that's something we haven't talked about. Is the John Williams score adds a lot to this movie that emotionally you might not have felt. And so for me, it would be really that string of time from when he's racing the train through to when he finds a crystal. So that kind of real short like moment of he's showing off his powers. He's kind of getting teased by those other kids. And then his father dies, and then the crystal calls out. Like, I guess that's 3 scenes, but that is when the movie really becomes like emotional for me, and I'm in love with this character. I want to be Superman, like in those moments, basically.
Right. How about you, Lucas?
I'm not going to take up any more time. Exactly right.
No, seriously, because you are not kidding.
No, yeah, those are the moments.
In that moment where he shows off his powers the first time, and his dad dies. I think the way the movie hits those beats, it's like, wow, okay, like this is actually a serious movie. This is not campy. This is not, like, okay, we got that amazing opening, but then we have this, because in the middle of the movie, in the middle of that part, you're expecting a lighter tone. Yes, there is a lighter tone, but then they drop his father dead, like, kind of bring the movie back down.
How about we not say it like that?
Here we go.
That's how it happens. That's how it happens.
That is how it happened. Like, he literally
Bambi's mother.
Pretty much, he literally drops dead. Okay, so now from Otis to the end of the movie, good or bad? Simple. I'm gonna keep it that simple. From Otis to the end of the movie, good or bad? Or does it have a moment for you? Or is there a mix? Or is it just bad? Like,
I'm better with stars. I'm better with stars. It works better. Because I think people, by giving numbers, it's hard for people
from Gene Hackman.
Oh, no, not stars meaning in the people who star in the movie. I mean, literally, like, that point up until we were talking about.
Okay.
But that point, it's a 4-star movie.
Right.
Everything after that, it's about a 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
That's
bad,
the problem.
bad.
I mean, that's really the problem with this whole movie.
Yeah.
All right,
that's the
so
it just gets bad. It gets bad.
Like, to me, it doesn't even get bad. It's just it gets super comic booky again. Like Patrick has said on more than one occasion, this is what
Superman was in the comics in the 70s.
So it's hard for you to now say, okay, this is what the people know. If you decide to, because I don't think at that time nobody was gonna. If you were gonna make a comic movie, I think Batman was the only one at the time who went away from the comic book roots, and I think that's why the '89 Batman is, still like one of the top superhero movies.
I don't think any comic book movie redefined the comic book character more than this movie ever in the history of comic book movies.
Wow.
Really?
I think that this movie so redefines Superman that this movie is what spawns
the definite Superman
Crisis and the recreation of Superman with Byrne and all that, because they had to reset Superman to fit the movie, because the movie was the new expectation of who Superman was.
That's right. In terms of that, but in terms of making the movie, you had to take from what you had, but moving forward, he changes the character of Superman moving forward.
Right. If you saw that movie and then open the comics, you'd be like, who's this guy?
Wow.
Yes. And so for me, Otis from Otis to the end of the movie, I look at it as it's an okay movie, nothing really memorable. It just happened. It's like, okay, we need him to be a hero, so we're just gonna make all of these events happen so he can just save people.
It has some cool special effects. For me, it's probably a
Awesome
2-star just on special effects, and that's what you got. It's it's just a popcorn movie.
I think at that point, yes, that's a popcorn movie, but you have to give props to the effects guys, because I mean, Flight, a lot of the effects, especially with him in the bomb, that looked pretty damn good. I mean, for a movie that came out when it came out, it still looks pretty good. So
And the work they had
And
to
now,
put into
so-
like making that happen too. There's no green
Jesus.
screening
Yes.
computers or anything.
Nope.
They're like
Yes, at the time,
melting
it was
colors
straight up-
off the film.
Yeah.
And-
So, and in terms of in a way, we've kind of talked about this question I'm about to ask in terms of heroism and what he represented. You all feel like this is what Superman represents. You know, other iterations of Superman moving past this haven't really echoed this Superman, because we talked about him saving the cat out of the tree, and he, you know, it's a god. Like, because I think even Lois at one point, she has that inner monologue. They're flying, and she's like, "Look into my mind." She calls him a god. Like,
'Cause,
I'm flying around
I mean,
with a god.
If someone was to come down and start flying and had superpowers, I would assume he was a god.
Which is what Man of Steel
so-
is trying to explore. It just doesn't
It
have
just
the
is so
creative
bad
power to do it.
because
Yeah,
Zack
we're
Snyder
always gonna go back to Man of Steel.
fucking
It's okay.
sucks. That's why.
You have to. I mean, you have to.
You keep saying Zack Snyder for Man of Steel. I really honestly think Christopher Nolan had more of a hand in Man of Steel than Zack Snyder.
Oh no. See.
think.
Now you're gonna make me break down Man of Steel for you, and I would do it.
That's-
Okay, no. We're not doing that.
I'm gonna do. Hold up. I'm gonna do it real quick for you because you just blame Christopher Nolan for Man of Steel.
I didn't blame him. I said he has a hand in it too. You can't take his hand out of it.
Mr. Goyer actually wrote Man of Steel, and according to them, a lot of stuff was changed between Snyder and what he saw as his vision of it from what they saw their vision of Superman, and that's the problem. But that's the situation of too many cooks in the kitchen, because Zack Snyder should have never been put in that position because he should not have been a director for that film.
Okay.
But let's go back.
Okay.
But to be fair,
original
Lucas,
Superman.
this Superman the movie has too many cooks in the kitchen as well.
It did up until Richard Donner shut everything down. That's part of the reason why we have a different director for Superman 2. Like, when you go through the backstory, like, they didn't kick Donner off of Superman 1 until all the filming was done and they shut down production on Superman 2.
Yes.
But they told him, you get to finish Superman 1, which I wonder if he would have finished it with the original ending to Superman 1 and not this ending, which was supposed to be in Superman 2,
Right.
how the movie would be viewed.
So that's pretty interesting, because we never know with the final cuts or the final products of this movie. It's something I feel like WB later on will be like, we'll sit down and how can we make more money from this? Okay, let's release Superman the movie and have his ending, different ending, and people are gonna go stare crazy and buy that movie, because I know I will if you release that.
Well, the Donner cut came out in 2006.
But the Donner cut only came out after there was a huge fan outcry for it to exist.
But remember though,
Pretty
it came
much
out.
so.
It came out after Superman Returns because they packaged it all together. Because at that
it
point,
was a package. It was a package too.
Yeah.
All right, and so Okay, so another question is in film history, there's a lot of callbacks. Like looking at every Superman, or it's been two other Superman movies after Superman the movie. I'll say that because for everything he did all those other movies, but there's been two different definite Supermans. Superman, there's been the one I'm not going to talk about because I have a different view of that movie than you guys. But then there's Superman Returns. Now in Superman Returns, they answer.
I would quickly correct you and say it's three definite Supermans.
Really?
Because as much as I despise Smallville, he is a definite Superman at this
Tom
point.
Welling, sure, absolutely.
Yes. So you have to add him to it. You have no choice.
I kind of feel like.
You ready for me to roll out my machete cut?
There you go.
All right, so here it is. So let's see if I remember this right. So Superman the movie up until Otis, then turn it off. Okay, you see Otis, you turn it off.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the next question I was going to ask you. So if a friend of yours says, "Yo, I've never seen Superman the movie," what is the advice? I mean, they're probably going to ask you. You're going to go, "I love it," but what are you going to say? You're going to definitely say after you see Otis.
Oh, go yeah.
Just turn it off. Turn it off. And turn on Superman 2. And that villain you were so excited about at the beginning, there he is.
Damn it,
Right?
yes.
You know what?
Yes.
You know what?
Right?
That actually makes sense because that's a better movie if you're looking at, in one sitting. That's a better movie. As soon as we get the first scene in Otis, you just cut it off. Boom, you get Zod and Superman 2. And I think that's what Man of Steel was going for. It's like we're gonna do this thing with Krypton and then jump to Zod and not give you, but whatever.
For extended machete cut after Superman 2, you go to the first 3 seasons of Smallville. Only the first 3 seasons.
It's backstory.
Yeah. As backstory.
Pretty much.
And
It's like
also,
a prequel.
also to give you a sense of time passing, that like time is passing because in Superman 2, he like disappears. And then you watch Superman Returns. Superman Returns, you have the backstory of Smallville, which Superman Returns was both inspired by Superman 1, 2, and Smallville.
Yep.
Pretty much.
And now you have Superman Returns. You watch Superman Returns, you're done. Machete cut Superman.
Yes, you fucking
that's
cut off
amazing.
everything else after Superman Returns. There's no need to watch anything after Superman Returns.
Look, I'm not gonna get triggered. I've already said this. I'm not gonna get triggered. So it's whatever. How you feel is how you feel. But okay. Let me see. Let's see if there's any other thing I have.
Also, Superman Returns is a movie that will never get the credit that it deserves to get.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no credit for
part of that
Superman
is
Returns.
As a movie
with the budget.
Yes.
Superman Returns.
Yes.
So like every single redraft, rewrite, every single version they ever tried to make of Superman, they put into as a cost on the budget of Superman Returns. So if you can think of everything that ever got done with the Superman property from Superman 4 to Superman Returns.
Yes,
got put into Superman Returns.
They fucked Superman Returns over because, in all honesty, that is a film that costs close to 80 to 90 million at max to make.
Yep.
And because you attach everything else to it, it looked like not a failure because it still made a good amount of money, but it looked like less of a success than it actually was.
Right.
That plane scene at the beginning portion of Superman Returns is the best Superman scene ever filmed. That's the fucking best Superman scene ever done.
You know what's great about that scene is it's a very, very huge callback to this movie right here when Superman saves Air Force One.
I agree.
Yes,
but that's what a lot of people said about Superman Returns.
The fucking ripples that they show in that plane as he's catching, like, dude, like
you needed that.
Like it's so much.
Hey.
The only issue with Superman Returns was that it wasn't enough action in it.
Yeah,
but that was partly because the studio. Yeah, it was. It was fully budget because the studio knew.
I'm sorry, that's CJ's.
We can't hear. What'd you say? I mean, you can't. You just can't come on talking, and we don't like understand
really, CJ, that's how you
damn thing you're saying. But again, Patrick, you're 100% right. It was strictly budget at that point because they did this. They did a studio thing and said we're going to attach everything that we did before this movie was even thought about and put it in the budget of Superman Returns.
It's unfair,
and that wasn't fair. That was completely. And then in the process of saying we're going to do that, they literally cut so much more out the movie and said we don't have the money to shoot that.
Yep,
pretty much.
So when people think it's Bryan Singer, it wasn't Bryan Singer. That was Warner Brothers saying we can't afford any more of this movie because we're backtracking everything else for Superman. So a lot of the action scenes that were pinned to actually shoot, they cut from the movie and said we can't do it.
Preach it. Tell the world.
Tell the world. It's part of the behind the scenes things that happen. I mean, it's more public knowledge, the behind the scenes thing that happened.
It's
from
not that public
Superman.
knowledge.
No, not from Superman Returns. I'm talking about from Superman in 1 and 2.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's public knowledge. But no one knows the shit that happened behind the scenes between all those Nicolas Cage ideas, the thrown away Justice League movie.
Spider in the third act.
Yes, all of that got thrown into the budget of Superman Returns. And
fantastic.
That's why that movie failed with its action.
So let me go ahead and throw in CJ right quick. And go ahead, CJ. Do you want to go ahead and let us know? Because this is the first time you're on Earth2's public live cast. So please let's ask you questions because everyone has talked about Superman for about an hour, almost an hour and a half. Superman, the movie. What were your thoughts? When did you first see it? When you first saw it, what did it do for you, and how did it make you feel? And like moving forward, what did it open up for you as whatever point you saw it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I saw Superman 1 and 2 actually on cable. It's like 6 years old, so it was about 1990. Saw it on regular TV. I think I seen it when I was like 4 or 5 and stuff, but I kind of just remember little things about it and stuff, Superman. But like actually remembering certain things, it was like right when I was like 6, 7 years old when I saw it and stuff. I enjoyed it. It was like I said, it was Superman. It was Christopher Reeves. I mean, it did its job. At least with the first movie, it did its job in being the origin story for Superman and stuff. And like I said, I enjoyed the first movie, even with the whole flying around the Earth to save Lois, which is as a kid that fascinated me, the idea that he could do that. And then as you read comics and stuff, you find out that it was really the Flash that can do that and not Superman. But whatever, you just roll with it. I'm pretty sure if that movie came out now, I think a lot of people probably would have like overly criticized that moment and stuff. Because I think now people have overly criticized that whole moment with him flying around and Lois and and all that stuff. Superman 2, I enjoyed way more than Superman 1 just because we got the Kryptonians and there's fighting and stuff. Even though the fighting is not as hyped up as people made it out to be back then. I remember a lot of people like, "Oh my God, Superman fighting!" But then when you watch it, it's like really them just kicking buses and blowing and all that stuff. It's not. It's enjoyable for that time, but it wouldn't fly nowadays and stuff, especially what we get in Man of Steel and all that stuff. And also the fact that people still forget the fact that Superman killed Zod, and it's just played off for laughs. Like, oh yeah, Zod just falls down the thing, and like I said, I laughed at it as a kid. It was funny. But yeah, now it's kind of like, okay, he did kill Zod, and it was just kind of played off like, whatever and stuff. But like I said, I did like the fact that Superman 2 had ideas, like the idea of Superman becoming human because, he wanted to be with Lois and, and then the whole thing with him kissing Lois to forget that he's Superman, which that's a thing. Again, these are little things that people tend to just forget, brush off because nostalgia and stuff, but it doesn't kill the movie. But that's just one of those little moments that, again, you put that in the movie now, people would just be like, that's bullshit, But like I said, it kind of gave you that feeling, especially when you look at it now, rewatching it again. It did kind of like, that was the Superman that we know, Truth, Justice, the American Way. He was very stoic, and I think that was because the way Christopher Reeves played him and stuff. And that's kind of what made me like the animated series a lot more, because it kind of carried forward those ideas and also played a little bit of comic stuff as well. So, it's enjoyable for what it is. I'm not going to say much about 3 and 4 because me and the guys have
those didn't happen. Those did not happen.
Golden Globe is
and do you notice we didn't reference 3 and 4 at all during this entire thing?
I know.
We talked about every single Superman thing, but yeah,
that was all.
Nobody should talk about Superman's 3 or 4 unless you're talking about either having a drinking game or how much cocaine could you do and make a movie. Those are the only times you talk about those two movies. It's for those reasons.
Or if you're trying to hack an ATM.
Because it's not about cocaine. It's the fact that somehow Canon Films,
those movies were made.
I am surprised Canon Films, if you know the history of Canon Films, folks, watch the documentary on Netflix, Break Electric Boogaloo, the story of Canon Films. They played very fast and loose when they bought film rights, and the fact that they got Superman, and they had big plans for Superman, and it just went to shit. It went to shit.
All right, so you've talked about what it was for you when you watched it back in the days. We've all talked about that too, but we've also talked about what it is now. Like certain moments where we're like, crap, like why did this happen? Like, you know, we all expressed disdain for him flying around the world. Patrick even tried to explain it away in the beginning of this. Like, you missed that part. He said,
like, I'm sorry.
I'm just telling you that there is debate.
When he was bringing up a theory that I've actually, it's a theory, but it's a theory though that I've actually heard. And keep in mind, again, I'm someone who I pay way more attention to movie history, and that is something that I've heard often. Is that it's bullshit, but still, it makes people feel comfortable about what he did there.
Like, and Robot Chicken made a very funny sketch about it, and it was hilarious. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's how you know your premise is ridiculous. And Robot Chicken's like, yo, let's parody this thing because this is ridiculous.
All right, so what we did was review the movie in two halves because the movie is two movies. And you also missed Patrick's machete cut of Superman because he gave us like the ultimate of ultimate director's cut editions of Superman. He said
every Superman, not just his movies, every Superman ever made, Joe.
You know what? Let's let Patrick give you that cut again, Patrick. So because Chris missed it, so go ahead, give it to him.
All right, so here's the machete cut for Superman. You watch Superman 1, the movie, up until when Otis turns up, and when Otis turns up, you turn it off. Turn it off. You put that tape away. You put in Superman 2, and you just start right away with Superman 2. You go through Superman 2, and then once you're done Superman 2, if you want to go extended, you watch the first and only the first 3 seasons of Smallville. Basically, as long as Pete is on the show. Okay? Once you're done Smallville's first 3 seasons.
Oh, didn't Pete do porn? I'm sorry. Damn it, man.
Wow.
After the first 3 seasons of Smallville, you go to Superman Returns, you watch Superman Returns, and you never watch anything else. Done.
And that's the end of it.
Too late on that because Smallville, so sorry, man.
But that's the ultimate cut.
Why would somebody sit through? I couldn't sit through a season of Smallville.
You know what? Sitting through is an understatement. It's not so much sitting through so much as just watching greatest hits.
I watched all of Smallville, and it was a labor of love. It was,
but you know what?
It was painful because
labor of love.
As much as I want to say, like, why would you sit through Smallville? I fucking love Lois and Clark, and I can watch that over
Lois and Clark was good. Let's not do that.
I love Lois and Clark.
Never disrespect Dean Kane's Superman because he was like legit for me. Like, remember when lightning struck him?
Dean Kane is a better Superman than Henry Cavill.
Okay,
whatever the fuck his name is. Dean Kane is a better Superman.
I mean, that's not hard.
Dean Kane's a better Superman.
How do I mute Lucas? Like, how do I do that? You guys? It's like, no. But now, okay, so we reviewed this movie in two halves, CJ. So I want to hear your review for the movie. So the first half of the movie is, Krypton leading up to when he finds out he's Superman and when he, finds a fortress. Because as soon as what's his name, Gene Hackman comes into this movie, it changes. The whole scope of Superman changes, and this too.
Yeah.
So we're saying, what is your review for the first half of the movie, from Krypton to where he finds, to where Pa Kent dies? What's your review for it in stars? I believe Lucas.
It's a 4 out of 5 for me. I like to say I think it's a pretty solid intro to Superman and stuff. Marlon Brando pretty good as his dad and stuff, and the whole Pa Kent almost coming close to the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing as he's dying.
Pretty much.
But I actually like that moment more so than Pete's because it was basically, and that's kind of the one thing that I know it's kind of taking a pot shot at Man of Steel, but I like this moment with Pa Kent in this one just because it really emphasized
the tornado thing.
It emphasized the idea of,
I hate that tornado.
It emphasized the idea of hey, you have this power, but you can't save me from shit that's out of your control, like a fucking heart attack and shit.
Yes, I feel you on that.
Not a fucking tornado that you can literally save him from.
Yes, if you wanted to do Man of Steel,
and I thought that was awesome because
we can't talk about the tornado more. It's like post-traumatic stress. Can we just not talk about that?
What is your
I'm the only
review?
person that laughed at the tornado. FYI, I laughed.
You laughed at the tornado?
Yes, I did. Because the fact that
I thought it was ridiculous, and I liked the movie.
Don't do it.
Can't.
Yes, I liked the movie, but I thought it was ridiculous. Like, if you wanted to kill Pa Kent to make a gesture, almost, why don't you just strike him down with a heart attack? Like, that would have been a lot easier a pill to swallow than
give him cancer. Fuck it.
Yes, then
Damn,
because
that's
exactly
dark.
because if
You already
even if you give him a heart attack, you can still fly him to a hospital super fast.
No,
you can still run him to a hospital,
but he can die.
A heart attack is fine. He said, "Why not give him cancer?"
Because Superman can literally do nothing about cancer. He can't do anything about cancer.
Hey, hold up. I've seen enough Superman cartoons. He has laser vision. He should be able to get rid of the cancer cells with his laser vision.
Get out. Get out.
Martha.
No, but
why did you say her name? Why did you say her name?
I did enjoy.
Oh, we're not saying Martha on the show because as soon as you say it, Martha's gonna break into some shit. Anyway, so let's see.
No, for real. Going back to it, I did enjoy just that whole thing with him and Pocket, him realizing that, hey, he can do this, but his dad is mortal, and hey, you can't save everybody in certain situations.
With all these powers I have, because even his that line, with all these powers I have, I couldn't change anything. So now, what is your review from when Otis shows up to when he reverses the polarity of the Earth?
Okay, I enjoyed Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor to a point. I mean,
are you being serious?
To a point. I just said to a point. I didn't say it was the best.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. Wow, I didn't mean it.
You said, "Are you being serious?"
I thought he was trolling.
I didn't say he was the best. It's not like I was like, "Oh, Gene Hackman is the best." Personally, Clancy Brown from the fucking animated series is the best Lex Luthor to me, but that's just my personal opinion. But Lex Luthor, he was decent. I'm just tired of the real estate schemes and shit. But for that time, it was Gene Hackman. He worked for Lex Luthor. It is what it is. He was being a dick. Fine, cool. That's whatever. I enjoyed
writing too.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Superman saving the kid at Niagara Falls. That was actually pretty dope. That was awesome. That was cool. Even though I'm like, hey kid, what the fuck were you doing there? The damn thing to fall down. But okay, But yeah, it was actually cool. Him flying with Lois. It was endearing and stuff. And like I said, it was typical Superman stuff, like him just being the Boy Scout and stuff. And then you get to the whole like Lois dies in the earthquake, and then Superman screaming no, and then just flying around. I was like, okay, this is just hilarious, man. And as a kid, even I was like, Superman can do that? He can go back in time? I didn't know this. And then again, I read comics. I'm like, oh, so that's not a thing, huh?
But that's the best part. He didn't even go back in time. Like, if he went back in time, that'd be different.
Wait a minute. Wait. If he did not go back in time, how the fuck did he get back to that place? I have so many questions now.
No, it's a lot. No, that's a lot.
If you move the Earth in a certain direction, everything
It
rewinds.
rewinds time.
I think the problem is the movie didn't do a good job of it. Like, you watch it now, he went back in time. But when you watch the movie if you watch the movie back then, you're like, so he reversed the polarity of the Earth, and that's how. Okay,
No, I thought that as a kid. I thought, oh, so if you go around the Earth really, really fast, everything goes in reverse.
Any heavenly body
around in circles.
Yeah,
I would run around in circles all day.
Also, if you fly around the sun, you end up back in time too.
But I also thought as a kid that if you sprinkle dust on people's heads, it was strict like in Beetlejuice. So really, children are the biggest.
I'm excited for the retro review of Beetlejuice.
But yeah.
Oh man, we need to do that. We need to do that. So that'll be like the second half of this.
But the second half of Superman 1, I'll kick it a half star down, so like 3.5 out of 5, just because. Just because of the
Wow.
ridiculousness of what happened at the end. Just like, so we just get Christopher Reeve trying to act screaming like, no! It's like, okay, I mean, that's cool.
Hey.
CJ, where do you rate Man of Steel?
He still did as good
man.
as a job as Heva Caviezel did.
At the
Can we
time,
stop talking
actually, you
about
know what?
Henry Cavill?
The funny thing is about Man of Steel, I actually rated it like a B- at the time. I still maintain that because
God.
the only reason why I say B- is because
Yes.
I wanted to see they again. I'm coming at it from I'm attacking it from the
You wanted to see
angle of
powers?
the comics now
See,
versus like
you got Mo real happy when you said B-.
I rate,
I mean, look, it's
I
a B-.
rate the trailer of Man of Steel a B-.
Damn.
Oh.
It's a B- at the time. I'll say B-. If I was grading it now, it's like a C-ish, basically.
Still
it's not the
pretty
worst
good.
thing. It really isn't. It's just
I mean,
it just does some. Put it this way, it does less questionable stuff compared to Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. Puts it that way.
I think it spawns all that.
You know
though.
what? We're not
But it's
doing
less
that.
questionable.
We're not going to talk Batman v Superman.
Because I really,
We're going to talk Suicide
all right.
Squad.
I really feel on Man of
All right.
Steel, there was a little bit of kind of like, okay, he had ideas, but he didn't go all the way fucking crazy with it, you know? So it's like he was tame, but like I said, that's getting off topic. But
Man
like,
of Steel lost me the moment he took those clothes and he didn't do no chores, leave no money in return. I was like, who is this Superman stealing clothes?
He needed clothes. What are you talking
He's
about?
stealing them.
Was he supposed to walk around half naked?
No, he's supposed to go and
I mean,
wash the dishes for him.
I mean, I was just mad that
But
he
can I
threw
tell you
a
something?
fucking speed power lines and nobody put two and two together that he was Superman. Then that's all I'm saying.
I mean, Lois was standing in front of Superman with his glasses off, and Superman won and didn't know he was Superman. So what are you talking about? Like, no one.
Well,
is
that's
supposed
comic book
to
logic. That's the thing. That's comic book logic. We're supposed to, and also if you really look at the way he was playing Clark, he was hunched over. He was doing all these little.
we
things.
talked about that. We talked about that.
Those little things, kind of like, how is this goofy dude supposed to be Superman? You know, and that's kind of what Man still kind of fucks up a little bit because it's like you throw glasses on him and all of a sudden, oh shit, he's Clark. It's like, come on, dog. Like,
But that's the thing is, not a lot of people knew in Man of Steel. Like, not a lot of people knew who he was or what Superman was. They didn't know who Clark was to start off.
True.
He was Superman first and then Clark. So Superman, Man of Steel reversed Superman for you.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer we're gonna go for, but I just gotta ask everyone again one more time. So we've reviewed the movie as halves. I want us to talk about the movie as a whole before we leave. Let's start with Patrick. Oh, okay. All right. But okay, let's start with Patrick anyways. What is again for the last time, what is Superman to you? What is the movie? How does it make you feel? What does it leave you? What do you think, like moving forward? If you could have been back there at the time in the room, like if you had seen the movie in the theaters, how would it have made you feel?
I mean, Superman, I think that Lucas really hit it hard. I think Superman was hope, right? And he was, I mean, Superman is the superhero. Like, that's even a trope now played in comics where everybody's trying to live up to Superman. And I think that trope comes from us growing up in an era where Superman is the superhero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've so internalized that like Superman, it's hard for anybody to direct a Superman movie because you're like, might as well be directed a movie about Jesus, right? Like people are going to compare him. They just expect perfection. And so I think that is part of the problem, but that's how I feel watching Superman, is he like gives me hope. And like you talked about, like he makes you want to be more, to be good, to be greater than yourself. Like that's what little kid Patrick definitely internalized, but I think it continued on through adulthood and is why I go back to Superman. And also a big thing about Superman to me in the comics is that because he's so powerful, the conflicts, when written well, the conflicts he has to face are internal. The conflicts he has to face are really against himself. And those get pretty, they resonate with me really deep, I guess.
All right. That makes sense. CJ? All right. That makes sense.
CJ? I think for me, Superman does represent kind of like that like kind of like like he is the Boy Scout, and stuff. Which is weird because you read comics now and Captain America and Superman have always been those Boy Scouts, so to speak, and stuff in terms of just being the best representation of the best of humanity, essentially, especially with Superman and stuff. He's supposed to represent those ideals and such. And at least with the first movie, it was interesting to see him represent the purest of being a hero and stuff. And for me, I like that aspect of Superman and stuff. And I think this movie, to me, is still, at least to me, I feel the movie holds up in terms of giving you that kind of like, I'm not going to say the de facto Superman, the definitive Superman, because I think there are other mediums that have done it and stuff that have done a pretty good job with the Superman mythos. But I think if you had to really say, what does Superman represent from you, I can at least say, oh, the animated series or the Christopher Reeve Superman 1. That kind of best represents what Superman is to me, just that stoic hero.
I would ask Lucas, but I don't know if you can hear me. But when he comes back or when he's back on, I'll ask him. Again, I'll just go ahead and echo what I said in the beginning. Superman was just Superman represents the best in yourself. Like if anything, and this movie was just when you saw him do certain things. Like again, I go back to him, like stopping those two major crimes and then coming back around to save, to get the cat out of the tree. It's like, wow, like he can do all of these things, but still has time for the little people. And it makes you want to, like be better. Like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm this person, but I shouldn't forget the little people. I shouldn't forget, like the people who probably need me the most. Because at the end of the day, the crimes that he solved could have been solved regardless. But, he did it, but still took time from that to come help. Because at the end, you would call the fire department to get your cat out the tree, whatever would take, however long it takes. But then Superman did it, just saying, look, I am Superman. I'm still this God person, but I am not so much of a God that I forget about my the people who would look up to me. And we all do. I did, for a major part of my life. I still do. I still read Superman comics. Like the same excitement that I had reading, looking at this movie is the same excitement I still get looking at Superman comic books. Like I remember reading, was it 27 and 28? Yeah, 27 and 28. When he had this road trip with John and the family, and they were going through America, and he was showing, like the best of America. Like, okay, by the way, they're going through the Civil War times, and I'm like, wow, like Superman, as bad as, because again, what makes Superman great is in a world where it's super dark, he can still shine through, and maybe that's what the DCEU Superman is missing him shining through the super dark world, because DCU is showing today as what today is. But like I said, they're probably missing him shining through today, because there's still people in this world today that shine through, that show you their best. And that's what Superman is. Like, he's more than just a god. He's like an everyday person who feeds the needy, even though they themselves may not have eaten. That's what Superman is. And that's what he represents. And that's when I saw the movie as a kid, I still wanted to do all these good things, because at the end of the day, Superman would want me to do it, period. Like that's what I saw. And that's what he represents to me. I mean, let's forget the campiness of the movie. Campiness of the movie aside, because the movie was hella campy. We've discussed that at length. Like Lex Luthor was campy. The reason why the lady helped them with the kryptonite chain was ridiculous. So not because people are gonna die, but because my mom is gonna die. Like that's super selfish. But it had to happen. Campiness aside, this was a good movie nonetheless. So it's not, yeah, we've talked about the movie and we've kind of dissected the movie and talked about how bad the movie is now today, but it's not going to change how I feel about Superman. The movie, it's not going to change. I will still watch the movie whenever I feel like putting on a Superman movie. I'll still watch Superman 1 all day, every day. Again, if not for that Krypton, Marlon Brando as Jor-El, I still think was pretty good. It's pretty awesome. Not taking away.
If you want to introduce somebody to Superman now, like let's say you are bringing somebody into Superman, what is it you start with?
I will start with Superman 1. I definitely will start with Superman 1. I'm like, you have to watch the original version of Superman. But I will tell you, and I know you guys are going to turn your noses up to this, but I will tell you to definitely watch Man of Steel. Reason I'll tell you to watch Man of Steel is because Man of Steel represents the world as hold on. Man of Steel represents the world today. And if you want to watch an updated version of it, that's what you want to watch is Man of Steel. But you have to watch Superman 1 and 2. You have to. Like it's if you're a friend of mine and we have to have this discussion, you're definitely going to watch Man of Steel 1 and 2. Serious. That's it. But I will implore you. I won't say you have to watch Man of Steel, but I would leave it up to you. I'd put it up there and I'll leave it up to you to do what you want to do after watching 1 and 2. That's it. That's mine. But I like your cut better, where you watch.
You can skip Smallville. You don't have to do Smallville.
It's a very involved cut. I'll be honest with you. If you really want to get people straight to the point on like Superman, give them the animated series. It's only like 3 seasons.
Yes. But again, the animated series had its camping moments. Now, the best part of one of the best episodes on the animated series was, I think, The Man Who Has Everything.
Yeah. Well, that was like a Justice League episode, but yeah, it was
that animated series is solid. It's solid.
Yeah. I mean,
it's pretty solid. I mean, you have the best Lex Luthor.
I would say the first, I think that 2-parter at the first 2 episodes and stuff where they show Intro and Krypton,
definitely,
and then like fighting in Metropolis and all that stuff. That was like a culmination of just, and I think that's what makes Bruce Timm and them so good. They're able to pull things from comics and the Christopher Reeve stuff and just melt it together and to do it.
I have my problems with Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm needs to stay away from female characters. Like for every good thing that he's done.
That's a different topic. That's a different topic altogether on that one. Trust me, I give it.
For every good thing that he's done, he needs to stay away from these female characters. But yeah. So for CJ, I'm gonna guess that if you have to bring someone in to watch Superman, you just go with the animated series. That's it.
Yeah, it's just simple and to the point,
Hey, the reason
I would say the first movie is a close second and stuff. If they really want to see it, if they want to get an idea and stuff,
Lashley.
The reason I put Smallville in that machete cut, by the way, is purely for Clark Kent, Lex Luthor relationship. It's purely why.
Because it is a thing. It is a thing. Where especially in Birthright, in American Alien and Birthright, it's a thing where they're a package deal, just like Superman and Lois Lane are a package deal.
I agree.
Clark Kent and Lex Luthor are a package deal. It's because was it in Birthright where they were friends?
Yeah.
Yes, in Birthright they were friends. He was a loser kind of sort of, but they hung out together and then they kind of separated. You need that.
And they were friends in the 70s too. In the 70s comics, they were friends as well.
You need all of that to understand the relationship.
Big deal. And Rosenbaum does the best job, I think, of portraying that as Lex.
Yeah. Yes, to a certain extent. Because he did get like really campy and he got in his feelings about his dad a lot, which is what you see in
I think you see that in later episodes, though. I'm saying the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, in the first 3 seasons, yeah. And later he becomes this guy who's just jaded about his dad, and that's it. And that's
There's also some fun in Smallville of him discovering his powers, which is something that movies don't have enough time to explore. It's just the joy of finding his powers.
Yes. Definitely agree with you on that one. But is Lucas back? Lucas.
Yeah, I've rotated between my podcast page and this page, but the moment you said Man of Steel, I had to say no really loudly, so you understood just how.
I heard you on that was like the only thing you said in that whole. It was like about. Oh,
that was
minutes.
It was
the only thing you said was no.
I felt the only thing necessary to say was no, because no one should see Man of Steel.
You know what is great about this? Because we had a Man of Steel discussion, and I'm so glad that you weren't in on it.
If it was only for 5 minutes that I wasn't here, that's all it deserves.
All right, so
2 hour and 40-minute movie.
If you had to introduce someone to Superman, if they said, "Oh, Lucas, man, I know you like movies. I know you I come to you for movies, and I want to understand, and I want to watch Superman. Where would I start? What would you tell them?"
First Superman.
All right,
and there's Superman 1. It's for the reasons that Patrick said when Patrick said that the first Superman changed the way Superman was in the comics afterwards.
Pretty much.
So this is the definite Superman. This is the one that you need to see. You know,
All right.
nothing else would matter. It would be Superman 1.
Okay.
Because it's very rare you get one form of medium that changes how every other form of medium views a character.
Batman, the movie, did that.
No.
I don't think it did to that extent. Not at all.
Not
If you
as
think
big
about
as Superman.
Batman as he exists in the comics in the 80s, like think of Frank Miller and all that kind of stuff. It didn't have that kind of effect.
Wait. Oh yeah, I'm changing something because Frank Miller happened before the Batman movie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, to tell the truth, I mean,
Yes,
Adam
yes.
West Batman is still more iconic than Michael Keaton's is. So you can't say that. Like Christopher Reeves is the
Some people.
definite Superman at this point.
Well,
Again,
yeah. You get no
Yeah.
argument from me on that. You get
Yeah.
no argument from me on that. Anyways, Patrick, I believe you have to go in a little bit. So before you go ahead and let everyone on Earth2 know where they can find you and what it is you do before you leave. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks. Well, they can find me. Where can they find me? On Twitter, they can find me at Tabletop PhD. Reach out to me there, and I guess that's the only real place I exist. And then I actually run a bunch of board game stores, which is kind of the coolest job ever. So I love my job, and I also run a board game convention out here in Seattle. So I know that's not relevant necessarily to comic books and that kind of stuff, but I'm really into board gaming as well. So.
Yeah, so I'll drop your information in the description on this discussion when it's over. So I really want to thank you for coming out to this.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
We know you had a different time zone and everything, but you sat through this like a champ, and I really appreciate you coming in on this. But you're right, we should probably do a Beetlejuice one. So on the next Retro Reviews, definitely reaching out to you. But I'll throw out some topics out there, and I'll see what we get for our next retro reviews or retro discussions, and I'll definitely come back with you guys. And I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to thank all the guys that came through. CJ, even though you came late, thank you very much for coming and dropping by and dropping some opinions on us.
Thanks.
Lucas,
CP time at its finest. That's
no, but he did say he was going to be late. If he was going to come, he was going to be late. So he did say that. He mentioned that. Lucas, thank you very much. You've been on Earth2 before. CJ's been on Earth2 before, I believe. So this is awesome. Again, all their information will be down in the description bar. But again, I want Lucas and CJ to let us know what they where we can find them before they leave. Before we leave. All right, CJ.
Yeah, you can find me on our find me on Twitter at 3 Black Geeks. That's the number 3 Black Geeks. Basically since late 2010, I basically been kind of I took over Twitter account since D, went home and was a family man at the time. So I kind of took over and kind of just started doing random musings and stuff. And yeah, so you find me on there. Finding stuff on iTunes, Stitcher, and any podcast app that you use. You can even go to our website and just direct download it and listen to it. You can also check up our YouTube page. We got interviews from San Diego Comic-Con and got other stuff from Otakon that we actually filmed. I got put up and stuff still. I'm like really fucking soft pedaling on that. I don't know why. But yeah, all our podcasts is on YouTube as well. So yeah, got a lot of options to listen to us. So definitely check that out as well.
Lucas?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for I don't know why I was waiting. It's just natural. On my podcast, I don't wait for anything. So I'm like, I'm going to wait and make this more respectable.
I really appreciate it. This is awesome. Like, Lucas doesn't.
I try my best, man. I
don't
know.
Podcast. You will understand.
It's a lot of vulgar language and a lot of things that I don't wait for normally. But you catch me on YouTube. The channel is Draw4 Podcast. Check it out. They're actually should be doing a live podcast right now for a weekend review of a couple other things. We try to do 2 to 3 shows a week. I'm going to be reviewing an album over the course of the next 5 weeks. It's just some dope stuff. Check it out, Draw4 the Podcast on YouTube.
There you have it, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done this Superman review.
Oh, God damn it. Damn it, man. God damn it.
Let it play. Let it play.
We reviewed all of Superman.
That's a hell of an ending right there,
We
sir.
reviewed all of Superman. We even went into Man of Steel. We went everywhere for you guys. Thank you very much again, fellas, for coming and making this as awesome as it was. I'm going to let this song play us out. But again, thank you for coming. If you have to leave, it's fine. And thank you again. Thank you. Earth2 thanks you. We'll probably do another retro review and probably have these awesome guys do it with us. But that's it. That's our retro review for Superman. All right, guys.